House of Representatives approves presidential request to appoint 20 special advisors. Valedictory session, House members wax philosophical, hail legislative strides of the 9th Assembly. And correspondent examines the task ahead of the 10th House of Representatives. It's the dawn of a new era as the 10th House of Representatives is inaugurated. Hello and thanks for joining us on You and Your Reps. I am Victor Azo. Welcome to the program. The House of Representatives has approved the request of President Bola Tinubu to appoint 20 special advisors. The communication, which has read at plenary, is in line with the provisions of Section 151 of the 1999 Constitution as amended.
I write to request the kind consideration of the House of Representatives to appoint 20 special advisors.
The communication containing the request is the first from President Tinubu to the House. It is seeking approval for the appointment of special advisors for the President to assist in the running of his administration.
The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria empowers the National Assembly to prescribe by law or resolution the number of such advisors and their remuneration and allowances.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Against any, that's have it.
Meanwhile, the House has commended the Nigerian Labour Congress for shelving its planned strike over removal of subsidy as it opted for dialogue instead. The lawmakers urge government to implement agreement reached with labour unions. It is estimated that subsidy cost Nigeria more than $10 billion from 2015 to date.
And it was an opportunity to recall and revel in its legislative legacy as members of the 9th House of Representatives take a bow after 4 years of service to the nation. The valedictory session had the presiding officers and members reeling out key achievements of the 9th Parliament, among them returning Nigeria's budget to the January to December cycle and consistently engaging with stakeholders to address issues of national development.
It is the last day of service in the Hallowed Chamber, a time to look back and reflect on how well the 4-year mandate of legislative service was performed for the 360-member House of Representatives. The 9th House did its best by prioritizing issues that are significant to the growth and welfare of citizens.
In Ghana, where Nigerians were being maltreated, you went there. This shows leadership.
The lawmakers ensured increased funding to security, putting in place police reform for accountability, as well as the Companies and Allied Matters Act for improved revenue.
So many finance acts that had saw the increase in our revenue from about 5.2 in 2019, 5.2 trillion in 2019 to about 10.1 trillion in 2022.
Especially for the legislative achievement that we have made remarkably, the PID, the electoral system, that we have rejigged the electoral law, which is now a subject of attraction by even other countries in the world.
Others are interventions in the education and health sectors, bringing an end to industrial actions in the tertiary education and health institutions. They express gratitude for the opportunity to serve and urge the incoming 10th Assembly members to push for more constitutional reforms as they reflect on the progress made in the last exercise, which succeeded in granting independence and financial autonomy to the legislature and judiciary at the state level.
I salute your courage with respect to maintaining and jealously guarding and protecting the independence of the institution of the legislature.
The bills we are not able to pass, we expect that the 10th Assembly will be able to deal with it. The science to road management is to do what is practiced in other jurisdictions. It's not annual budget. The user has to fund the roads.
We know significant improvement in the number of women who won legislative seats after the 2023 elections. This issue remains critical for Nigeria, both at home and internationally.
I also want to appreciate the members of the press who have anchored and amplified all our efforts and work, who have made it possible for the other world and other part of the world to appreciate our work.
The 9th House of Representatives is ending, and the 10th will shortly be convened. All of us, those whose time in office is ending, and those for whom duty continues, will face the judgment of history. I urge you to keep this in mind and let your actions be guided by the desire to ensure that you are not found wanting by man or God in the final judgment.
The achievements of the 9th Assembly notwithstanding, its failure to approve any of the gender bills will go down as a major shortcoming. Now, you and your reps later engaged with Chair of the House Committee on Northeast Development Commission in the 9th House, Khadija Bukar Abba Ibrahim, who speaks on women participation in politics.
The number of women participating in politics has increased tremendously. Before, there was this notion of women who were in politics in those days were considered as low life, maybe backward, maybe dropouts, and, to a certain extent, women of leisure. Women that respected themselves shunned away from politics, and it was left for a very few numbers of women who were used during campaign and things like that, but not active participation in appointive positions, in elective positions. So now this notion has changed. Women are coming up and bringing themselves forward for nomination, for election, for appointments, and they're making themselves available for nation building. First of all, I think that if you look at other parts of Africa, more than Nigeria, there is a lot of increased number of women in politics and also in appointive positions. This is largely due to the 35% affirmative action stipulated in the Beijing Convention, which allowed for women to participate in appointive and legislative positions, 35% of women. Some countries in Africa have more women participating, more than 35%. Some have 35% and some have less than 35%. Like Nigeria, I think we are hovering at the lowest rate, and unfortunately in elective positions the number is diminishing. Because if I can remember, as far back as 2007 when I joined the legislature, the numbers have dwindled. They have gone down tremendously. Well, we don't know why this is so, because there's more interest in women in politics, but yet our numbers are dwindling. So we need legislation that will ensure that there is 35% representation of women. So in the last constitutional amendment, this wasn't possible, because the men are in the majority in the House and they would not allow for the amendment to see the light of day. So that failed to pass through the Parliament. But we're hoping that in the next assembly, in the 10th assembly, when the constitutional amendment comes up, we're hoping and praying that we're not going to give up. We're hoping and praying that this amendment will come up yet again and we'll attempt to see how far we will get with it.
The 10th House of Representatives has come alive, a mix of returning and new members from multiple political parties. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali takes a look at expectations and the task ahead of the 10th House of Representatives.
The COVID-19 pandemic that emerged in the early life of the Ninth Assembly notwithstanding, the House of Representatives, dominated by experienced lawmakers, pushed on to implement its targeted agenda. It achieved a record of more than 2,000 bills introduced during the session, out of which more than 120 enjoyed presidential assent. This number is higher than other assemblies. Notable among them are the Petroleum Industry Act, the Police Reform Bill, the amended Electoral Act, the Deep Offshore, among other important ones. Interventions in the areas of security, education, economy, and other sectors also enjoyed the blessing of the legislators. A couple of days from now, a new leadership will emerge to preside over the 10th House, which for the first time has more members from the minority parties than the ruling party as the center. Also interesting is the percentage of returning members compared to new lawmakers, which is about 20% to 80%. Less than 70 returning House members will form membership of the 10th Assembly. The tasking issues that await the 10th Assembly include autonomy for local governments and women inclusion.
The unfinished business of making sure that our local governments work, the unfinished business of ensuring that we have more women sitting among senators and House members.
We want to look at the Electoral Act, particularly the areas dealing with special focus on electoral offenses.
What I expect the 10th Assembly to do is to look at this area of funding, so that the committee will be able to fund themselves and conduct their oversight maximally.
Our major concern will be to unite the country and also ensure we will bring development by God's grace.
The recent pronouncements by the president on ending oil subsidy may be the first major assignment. It is agreed that both executive and legislature must work together to achieve the new policy.
And we later spoke with Deputy Chair of the House Committee on Appropriations in the 9th Assembly on the priorities of the 10th House, among other issues. Now here is Representative Iduma Igariwey.
I do think that what confronts the 10th Assembly is first and foremost to get it very right in terms of who the presiding officer is going to be. And I must say that the last speaker, who is now the chief of staff, left some very large shoes for anybody to step into. The achievements of the 9th Assembly, there are things you can easily Google and get all the achievements, too many of them. Electoral Act, the oil sector reforms, PIB, the Companies and Allied Matters Act reforms, just too many of them. Including what the House was able to do when we had the global pandemic. These are legacy issues that are there for anybody to see. And like I have said, I can only but associate these achievements with the kind of leadership we had in the past 4 years. So I do think that normally when we come in, the House will have their they will develop what they would like to offer Nigerians. So when we get in, we'll see what will be the priority areas of the 10th Assembly. But basically, our work is lawmaking. So one would expect that will remain our core mandate. It's either we are making new laws, we are amending old laws, and so on and so forth. Again, this is a new administration that is expected to come with a lot of issues, and some of those issues will require restructuring. We will expect a lot of executive bills, and so once again, you will need a competent captain to steer the ship in terms of giving the executive arm, both the cooperation and the assurance that the House or Parliament will remain a partner in progress. We also do oversight. It's one of our major assignments. So we also expect that the coming House will develop maybe new methods, new tools for oversight. These ministries, departments, and agencies, for a new government that wants to create a niche for itself, and also considering what a lot of people think about our public service in terms of so many gaps, so many leakages. So I think Parliament will also be expected to up their game in terms of oversight. Generally speaking, everybody who is elected a member can also be the presiding officer. We merely choose from ourselves, amongst ourselves. And, but in making that choice, we are also guided by some principles. First is that you have to think of the institution. You have to think of the institution. What is good for the institution? You need somebody who is calm. So you also need somebody who has what I can describe as the epistemic resources in terms of the content and that individual, in terms of discharging the very onerous responsibilities of the presiding officer. A lot of people think it is easy work, but I tell you it is a lot of hard work in virtually every respect you think of. I remember the now chief of staff telling us that he quickly grayed more when he became the speaker. And some of us who had known him will tell you that it told on him steering the ship of Parliament. There is a whole lot involved in it. So you really need somebody who has that capacity. It's in the best interest of the institution. Then you also think of what is in the best interest of the country, because the institution is a part of the country. But you also need somebody who is a thoroughly detribalized Nigerian, somebody who can also reach across the aisle. This particular 10th Assembly is a rainbow assembly. We have Labour Party, ABGA, SDP, LP, NNPP, and so on, and of course the major minority party, which is the PDP. So it's something you need somebody who will have the deftness and the capacity to manage whatever may be our differences. So it's going to be a situation that we need a lot of skills, not just somebody wanting to be the presiding officer. We need somebody who can really do the job of a presiding officer. For me, virtually all the candidates, all the people who have presented themselves are my good friends. I have tremendous respect for them. And there is none of them I will say has any diminished capabilities. But I have decided to pitch my tent with Right Honorable Tajuddin Abass and Right Honorable Benjamin Kalu. I think these two will make a good pair as presiding officers of the 10th National Assembly. I have known Honorable Abass since 2018. No, 2015. And I remember I once attended a course with him in Italy, San Remo, Italy. And he came across as a brilliant chap. Nothing but respect for his brilliance. And he has also left a very huge mark in Parliament in terms of his contribution to that core mandate of our parliamentary assignment, which is lawmaking. He's reputed to be one who has introduced the most number of bills, including those assented to by the executive. It's not easy to have your bill assented by the executive. I felt very proud of myself that a bill I sponsored, which has to do with raising the retirement age of judicial officers, was assented to by Mr. President. It's not easy to have your bill assented to, and Tajuddin probably cannot count the number of bills he has had assented to. So these are some of the things you also have to look at when you consider who you want to support. And then again, and very importantly, we cannot, in all honesty, dispense with that sentimental aspect of our politics, which is that this individual is from my own area. The party, the APC, swept some of us off our feet when they also remembered the Southeast in considering those they will support for this office. Like you well know, Kalu, Right Honorable Kalu, is from the Southeast. He's from Bende. I am from Afikpo. We are close door neighbors. So for APC to nominate Kalu was a game changer for some of us from the Southeast in particular, because we never had it in the 9th Assembly, anybody from the Southeast occupying that position. We also never had it in the 8th Assembly. So it's something many of us feel very particular about, very convinced about, and I must say a lot of us got persuaded that this ought to be the right place for anybody also from the Southeast in terms of support.
One of the most commonly used terms in a legislature is bill. So what is a bill? We spoke with Chair of the House Committee on Rules and Business to talk us through the making of a bill.
Any member of the society, any Nigerian has the right to come up with a bill. But that bill must be presented by a serving member. So if a private member, if a Nigerian private citizen writes a bill, he gives it to a serving member who would now present the bill in his name. It is no longer in the name of the originator. It will be in the name of the member serving. Member will now append his name onto that bill. The bill will go through the normal process of first reading, second reading, third reading, passage, and then assent by the president. There's also a bill that yes, a member also, in his capacity as a member, can also present. Not that it is given to him by an outsider. The member concerned can come, any member, any senator, any member of House of Representatives can come up also with a bill, which will also go through the normal process of first reading, second reading, third reading. And then we also have an executive bill, presented by the president or a minister or any ex-ministerial department in respect of the functions and operations of any government agency.
The agricultural sector is in focus on the committee segment as Senator-elect and Chair of the House Committee on Agricultural Production and Services, Montari Dandutse, speaks on making the most of the agriculture sector. Let's hear him.
Nigeria is blessed We have all the basic raw materials for development. What is needed is a policy direction and political will to face realities of issues so that we can have a tremendous success in terms of agricultural development and in terms of industrial growth. Because no country can succeed without having a successful and reasonable fiscal policies and tariffs so that the trade relationship is at our advantage. Because most of the countries in our neighbors, they tend to make Nigeria as a dumping ground, which will not agree in the 10th Assembly. Despite the opening of the border, we as lawmakers, if we go to the Senate, will make sure that it will be at advantage of Nigeria first than any other country in the world.
And I can't agree more with the senator-elect. And that's been you and your reps. Many thanks for staying tuned. I'm Victor Azu. Bye for now.